In today's movie, we follow the story of a young girl navigating a complex and forbidden relationship with her teacher. Her ultimate goal is to excel in literature, and she's willing to go to great lengths to achieve it. As the two grow closer, their emotions spiral out of control. What unfolds next forms the crux of the narrative, which we'll explore further in this film. So, let's dive into the story. The movie begins with an 18-year-old girl named Cairo, who lives in a sprawling mansion. While her life is comfortable and money is no concern, her world feels isolated, with very few people around. Her parents, both accomplished lawyers, are frequently out of town for work, leaving Cairo to spend most of her time alone. To attend school, Cairo must travel a considerable distance every day. One evening, while working on her admission essay for a creative writing course, Cairo confides in her friend Vinny. She admits that her life feels uneventful and lacks meaningful experiences to draw from. Vinny, in a playful yet provocative manner, suggests that Cairo might consider experiencing a student-teacher relationship to gain inspiration. Vinny then teases Cairo about whether she's ever noticed Mr. Fillmore, a teacher at their school. Vinny, a self-assured lesbian, shares a close friendship with Mr. Miller, the school coach, who is also well known for his calm and grounded demeanor, qualities that remind one of Pete Carroll's leadership style. The next day, Cairo begins attending a creative writing class led by Mr. Miller, a published author she deeply admires. Cairo had deliberately chosen this class because of her fascination with his work and her desire to pursue writing. When they meet, Cairo introduces herself and mentions her love for literature, proudly noting the many books she's read in preparation for the course. Mr. Miller is immediately drawn to her enthusiasm and dedication, and their conversations quickly become more frequent and engaging. Interestingly, Cairo often listens to Morgan Wallen's music to relax and find inspiration for her writing, adding a touch of modernity and relatability to her character. Mr. Miller, though reserved, appreciates Cairo's passion for storytelling, and their shared love for literature begins to draw them closer. During one of their conversations, Mr. Miller is surprised to learn that Cairo lives in a mansion called Love Hill, nestled deep in the forest. He jokes that he always thought only ghosts resided there. As they share a lighthearted laugh, Cairo's best friend, Winnie, arrives and invites them both to join her for breakfast. Before heading out, Mr. Miller notices the collection of books on Cairo's desk. He's impressed by her literary choices, which reflect her serious dedication to writing. Among the books is one he authored during his early teaching career. Seeing his work on her desk fills him with pride and an unexpected sense of connection to Cairo. Later, we glimpse into Mr. Miller's personal life when he returns home. His wife, Mrs. Miller, greets him, but their relationship reveals cracks beneath the surface. She struggles with alcoholism and is openly critical of his work, often resenting how absorbed he becomes in his books and teaching. This tension hints at why Mr. Miller finds solace in the enthusiasm and admiration of his students, especially Cairo. One day after class, Mr. Miller calls Cairo aside to discuss a story idea. As he shares a part of the narrative with her, Cairo listens intently and offers her own interpretation, enhancing the story in ways that surprise and delight him. Their conversation grows increasingly intimate, charged with unspoken emotions as they dive deep into their shared passion for storytelling. However, their moment is interrupted when Winnie unexpectedly arrives to take Cairo home. Later, Cairo travels to town for a poetry reading event that Mr. Miller is also scheduled to attend. She secretly hopes he'll show up, and her wish is fulfilled when he arrives. They sit close together, engrossed in the poetry being recited. One particular poem moves Cairo deeply, and she becomes emotional while listening. After the event, the two step outside and share an intimate conversation about the poem and its impact on them. The connection between them continues to grow, fueled by their mutual love for literature and a deepening understanding of each other. Cairo and Mr. Miller's growing intimacy takes another step as they smoke cigarettes together, sharing one between them. The quiet moments of camaraderie and shared habits deepen their connection. One day, Miller runs into Fillmore, a longtime friend who is both a coach and teacher at the school. While they're chatting, Cairo appears. Fillmore, known for his teasing nature, pokes fun at Cairo's choice of books, prompting an awkward moment. After Fillmore leaves, Cairo sits close to Miller, and the two share another cigarette. Their closeness continues to grow, unspoken but palpable. As Miller heads to his class, he receives a text from his wife, informing him that she'll be out for the evening. In class, Cairo mentions her favorite author, revealing her plan to write her story in a similar style. She seems eager to leave, so she quickly wraps up their discussion and departs. Meanwhile, Winnie, ever the mischievous one, climbs onto Miller's desk to tease Cairo, her antics adding a lighthearted moment. Fillmore returns to see Miller, and Winnie shifts her teasing to him, stealing his phone and hiding it in her clothes. The playful chaos underscores the contrast between Miller's reserved demeanor and the youthful energy of his students. Later, Miller considers spending the evening with his wife, but their plans are cancelled because she's overwhelmed with work. Alone at home, Miller receives a call from Cairo. She confesses that she accidentally, or perhaps intentionally, slipped his phone into her bag and suggests he come to her house to retrieve it. With no prior commitments, Miller agrees. When Miller arrives at Cairo's mansion, Love Hill, rain begins to pour. Cairo steps outside in thin, clinging clothes, her vulnerability heightened by the weather. They share a lingering hug, their emotions spilling over into a kiss. Though hesitant, Miller leaves shortly afterward, returning to the uneasy confines of his home. Later that night, Cairo emails him a story she's written. As Miller reads it, his wife confronts him, complaining about her inability to focus on her work with him around. Frustrated, Miller retreats to a small room in the house. There, he prints Cairo's story and begins to read. The narrative is strikingly personal, an adult tale mirroring their own complicated and forbidden relationship between a student and a teacher. The story takes a dramatic turn as Mr. Miller sits in his small room reading Cairo's story. It vividly recounts their shared moments, particularly the events of the previous night when their emotions nearly spiraled out of control. As he reads, Miller finds himself overwhelmed with excitement and loses himself in the intimacy of the story. The tension and passion written in Cairo's words deeply affect him, and he succumbs to the emotions stirred by her narrative. However, the next day marks a stark shift. Miller avoids Cairo entirely, breaking his routine of seeking her out or exchanging casual greetings. When Cairo confronts him at school, eager for his feedback, she asks, "How did you like the story?" Miller, with a cold and dismissive tone, responds, "I didn't like it at all. There were too many mistakes." Cairo, taken aback, pushes further, saying, "But the story is about us." Miller immediately denies this, replying sharply, "There's nothing like that between us. You're my student, and I'm your teacher. That's all." Cairo's heart shatters at his words. Miller goes on to add, "You'll have to rewrite the story. If you don't, I'll fail you in the midterm." Cairo's hurt quickly transforms into anger. She retorts, "My story is perfect. You're just scared because I wrote what you couldn't." To humiliate him further, she calls him a very ordinary writer, and dares him, "If you have the courage, fail me now." Tears in her eyes, she storms out of the classroom, leaving Miller rattled. Back at home, Cairo shares her heartbreak with Winnie over drinks. She confides, "Miller was just pretending to be close to me." Winnie, in her bold and mischievous way, suggests they distract Fillmore, hoping to cause chaos in Miller's circle. Winnie sends Fillmore a message and strikes up a friendly conversation with him, but her words fail to have the intended effect. Meanwhile, Miller is struggling to mask his turmoil at home. His wife notices his tension and asks what's wrong. Unable to keep it bottled up, he tells her about Cairo's story. To his surprise, his wife becomes intrigued by the narrative. As Miller explains the details, his wife grows excited, and the two find themselves caught up in the emotions of the moment. Just as they are about to connect intimately, Fillmore unexpectedly shows up at their door, disrupting everything once again. The story oscillates between Cairo, drowning her pain in conversation with Winnie, and Miller, battling his inner conflict and external pressures. The tangled relationships and unresolved emotions between them all hint at an explosive climax yet to come. Determined to distract Fillmore, Cairo and Winnie devise a bold plan. They strip down, take a series of romantic photos, and send them to him. When Fillmore receives the photos, he is startled and immediately leaves Miller's house without explanation, cutting short whatever conversation was unfolding there. Meanwhile, Miller's wife receives a call from the school. To her shock, she learns that rumors about Miller and Cairo's alleged affair have spread throughout the campus. Confronting Miller, she demands answers. Why is this happening? Is it because of the story Cairo wrote, or is there something more between you two? Miller firmly denies any wrongdoing, insisting that nothing happened beyond the story. The following day, Cairo doesn't attend her usual classes. Instead, she is summoned to the vice principal's office. Miller is called in as well. The vice principal interrogates both of them about the nature of their relationship. Cairo, feeling both hurt and defiant, admits that Miller gave her a midterm assignment in advance, that they smoked cigarettes together, and that they met outside of school on multiple occasions. When it's Miller's turn to speak, he hesitates, fumbling for words. His nervous demeanor only confirms the vice principal's suspicions. Unable to trust his explanation, the vice principal makes the decision to suspend Miller from his teaching position. As Miller leaves the school, he encounters Fillmore, who offers him a blunt but honest piece of advice. "You should have stayed within your limits. You crossed a line, and now you're paying the price," Fillmore says before walking away. Returning home, Miller breaks the news of his suspension to his wife. Her initial shock quickly turns into suspicion. "Are you sure nothing happened between you and that girl?" she presses. Again, Miller denies any inappropriate behavior, but his wife isn't convinced. Frustrated and distrustful, she asks pointedly, "Do you have feelings for her?" This question sparks a heated argument. Old grievances surface as they begin to hurl accusations at each other, highlighting every flaw and failure in their marriage. The tension between them grows, fueled by distrust, guilt, and unspoken truths. The fallout from the events at school and the unraveling of Miller's personal life set the stage for deeper consequences, as both Miller and Cairo grapple with the weight of their choices and the damage left in their wake. The quarrel between Miller and his wife escalates to the point of no return. Overwhelmed by mistrust and resentment, his wife ultimately decides to file for divorce, leaving Miller's personal life in shambles. Meanwhile, Winnie meets Cairo and confronts her about the fallout. "Do you realize what you've done? Miller lost his job because of all this," Winnie says. But Cairo remains indifferent, her expression one of triumph. "It doesn't matter," she replies coldly. "Miller underestimated me, and now he'll understand who I am." Cairo sees this as her ultimate victory. "He has no job and no wife now," she continues. "Let's see if he can even write anything anymore." For Cairo, the satisfaction of dismantling Miller's life is complete.